Hello, I'm Ashley from Through the Loop Yarn Craft, and today we're going to make the Glenayr Scarf. This scarf is a pretty quick and easy scarf to make up using just basic stitches to create this great modern texture. I love this one because it can be made for anybody on your gift giving list, and quick patterns are always some of my favorites. For the Glenayr Scarf, I used Wonder Fluff bulky weight yarn from We Crochet, and this color is called Beehive Heather. I'm also using my Furls Odyssey crochet hook, and it's a 7mm. For this one, if you sometimes have issues or difficulties knowing where the last stitches of your rows, you may want to use stitch markers to mark the first and last stitch as well. My finished scarf is about 73 inches long and 6 inches wide, but the pattern is pretty easy to adjust and you can change the length easily enough. I put the cute yarn tassels on the end. I will show you how I did that, and of course those are optional. And of course, for more information about the pattern, you can check out the blog post, and that is linked below, and you can see more photos, information, and some of my tester photos. So if we're all ready, let's grab our supplies and make the Glenayr Scarf. Hello, so let's get ready to make the Glenayr Scarf. We are going to begin with our starting chain, and we are going to chain 20. All right, so there is my chain of 20. And again, we are working back and forth in rows, so that means our starting chain gets to be smaller than when you work lengthwise. So we are ready for row 1. For this pattern, we are going to be using slip stitches and half double crochets. Those are the only two stitches we'll be using. And again, if you want to make this a little narrower or wider of a scarf, you can adjust your starting chain. Just make sure your chain is an even number. So we're going to begin with a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. So 1, 2, and we're just going to do a slip stitch. Now, I had mentioned that if you have trouble seeing some of your stitches, you might want to use a stitch marker for the first and last stitches. That is because they will begin and end with a slip stitch. These can be tricky to see, so if you have issues, just throw in a quick stitch marker and that should help that out. Because we're working with slip stitches, make sure your tension's not too tight because that will make it much harder to work into those stitches on the next rows moving forward. So we've got our first stitch a slip stitch, and now we're going to half double crochet into the next stitch. And we're just going to repeat that. We're going to slip stitch into the next and half double crochet into the one after that. And we're just going to repeat that all the way across. Just be mindful again about not making your slip stitches too tight. I like to pull up on them a bit just to make sure that they're not getting too snug in there. And you want to keep your tension a little more loose than you might be used to for this one. So go ahead and just repeat slip stitch, half double crochet all the way across. And you'll want a total of 19 stitches. And again, we are at the last stitch and we're going to end with another slip stitch. So for each row, your first and last stitch will be a slip stitch. And we are ready for row 2. So just make sure you turn that work and we're set for row 2. So row 2 is our repeat row. This row and every row after it are going to be exactly the same. So again, just like row 1, we're going to begin with our slip stitch. And so that one, as I mentioned, can be a little tricky to see, but it's right in here, right under that chain 1 space. So make sure you get that in the right spot. So just insert and slip stitch. I found definitely the key is making sure that first and last slip stitch aren't too tight, even making a little loose than you think it should be, because it will tighten up as we go down the row. So then our next stitch will be right in this half double crochet from before, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. We will be slip stitching in every slip stitch from the previous row and half double crocheting in every half double crochet from the previous row. So go ahead and continue that along until the end of the row, completing with your slip stitch, and I will meet you right back here. So here we are at the end again. And as you can see, this very last slip stitch does get tricky to see. So of course, always, if you need to, go ahead and use the stitch marker. I find it helpful to pull that last one up a bit. And then chain 1. And there is your row 2. So as I said, row 2 is our repeat row. So we're just going to go ahead and repeat row 2. And I did a total of 240 rows. You can do more or less depending on the finished length you like. That is completely your choice. I went for a bit longer of a scarf and decided to keep going until that 240 mark seemed good. So go ahead and continue repeating your slip stitches and half double crochets until you finish your final row, and I will meet you back here and show you how I did the tassels. All right, so here I am on my very last stitch on my final row, which was 240. Of course, that might be different for you if you chose a bit shorter or longer. So once we've completed that final slip stitch, we're just going to tie off and cut that yarn and pull it on through. And that is the main part of the scarf. So now if you are adding the tassels or fringe, I use those terms interchangeably, we can go ahead and get those on. So for the fringe, I cut 50 pieces of the yarn, about 10 inches long each, and put them in 5 groups of 5. Of course, feel free if you want to make it more fringy or less fringy, you can reduce or add to those numbers. I thought this kind of gave it a nice feel, but it's completely interpretive. So we will start with grabbing one of our groups of 5, and we're going to place them evenly across the top. I placed mine on every other kind of end of the row. So here, 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 and here. So we will just go ahead and put them across evenly. If they're not in the exact same spot, that's quite all right. Just as even as you can space them. So we're just going to fold these in half, just so they're kind of even. You can always trim the ends at the end if you'd like. I left mine a little untrimmed for more of that kind of rusticy feel. And we're just going to insert your hook wherever at the end of the stitch, wherever you want that tassel to be. So just right under those 2 loops. And then you're going to take your folded bundle here and loop that in right like that, so they're kind of attached, and pull it through and up a bit. Now you'll have that kind of loop on this side, so just grab the ends and pull them right through, and then pull it snug so they stay put. And again, at the end, if your ends aren't even, you can trim them up. I just left mine because I kind of like the way it looks. So we're just going to repeat that with the other 4 bundles. So just folding it lightly. I skipped every other kind of groupings here just to spread them out a little bit more, and we'll just repeat that across. There we go. So just continue that across, and I'll meet you right back here. So I just wanted to pop back on before I do my last fringe here. And what you can do, instead of having to weave in the ends, you can just include them right in with your fringe. So just kind of get it over the hook there with the other ones and pull that through too. And do the rest the exact same way. And that way it's kind of tight and knotted in there, but you don't have to weave in your end. And then you can just trim that end. And there you go. Now you've got all your fringe and you're all done. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed making the Glenayr Scarf. I know this one's going to be one of my favorites for this cold weather season. I'll probably get a good workout in the next couple days as our temperatures are starting to drop quite a lot. If you like this video, I do invite you to hit that like and subscribe button so you will always be notified when I have new tutorials available. And don't forget to pop down to the link below and check out the Through the Loop Yarn Craft blog with lots of free patterns and tutorials and other information. Again, thank you so very much, and I can't wait to crochet with you next time.